Hello and welcome to Trails Worth Hiking, the show that brings you some of the most interesting backpacking and trekking routes in the world. I'm your host, Jeremy Pendry. In the first part of the show, we bring you the story and history of a trail. Then we tell you what it's like to hike the trail and how you can do it. On this episode, we are back in the United States, but in a new state and region for this show, where we'll spend 3 days in hardwood forests doing a loop that follows a river and passes many beautiful waterfalls. But this isn't just any stroll in the woods. We'll also pass remnants of what was the world's first major oil boom. In fact, where 80% of the world's oil was once produced. And to make the hike yet more challenging and interesting, we'll hike it in the dead of winter, where the waterfalls will still be beautiful, but will be frozen. On this episode of Trails Worth Hiking, we travel to Gerard Hiking Trail in Oil Creek State Park in Northwestern Pennsylvania. Welcome to the show, everyone. Thank you for joining me. Our guest on the show is listener Kevin Morgan. Kevin is from Pennsylvania. He's involved with the Facebook page called Hiking and Backpacking Pennsylvania, though note it's Hiking & Backpacking Pennsylvania. He'll explain why that's important. So there are several reasons I wanted to do this episode. First, it's because it is our first time doing an episode on a trail in Pennsylvania. And as you all know, I like to cover as many regions and states and countries and continents as we can on this show. Secondly, I thought it was fascinating to learn about the oil industry history in this area and how the history of that industry is now preserved in a state park that has great natural spaces to explore. And the other big reason I wanted to do this episode is that Kevin hiked this trail in winter. And we haven't really done an episode on this show where we cover winter conditions directly. There are often places we cover that have high altitude mountains where there might be snow, but people aren't often hiking those in the dead of winter. And for this hike, Kevin hiked it in winter. You could hike it in summer, and we could talk about that as well. But I thought it was interesting to talk about the winter hiking experience as well. And I think you will enjoy hearing that perspective. Let's talk about the oil industry in northwestern Pennsylvania, where this hike is. It was known for a long time that there was petroleum in the area. The Seneca people, who were the largest of 6 nations of the Iroquois Confederacy, had expanded westward in the 17th century from western New York into this area. Their way of life included agriculture and hunting. One of the things that was interesting, though, is that the Seneca used the oil that's in the area for medicinal purposes and as an insect repellent. They collected it from small hand-dug pits or from surface or water sources like springs. And so it was a beneficial thing to use in their life. When farmers of European ancestry came to the area, there were oil seeps put on maps so that farmers could avoid it. In other words, the oil was seen as sort of a nuisance for what they were doing, which was farming. Let's talk a bit about how this works with oil. So there are large amounts of oil in reservoirs formed within sandstone, and there's a layer of caprock above the oil that essentially keeps it from coming up. Now, I'm not an expert on this, of course, but my understanding is you've got this hard rock on top that keeps the reservoir of oil from coming to the surface in a lot of areas, and therefore you need to drill to allow the oil to come to the surface. The oil company that was originally in this region was the Seneca Oil Company. They sent Colonel Edwin Drake to the area to look for oil. He was not actually a colonel. In fact, he had never even been in the military, but he was given this title to impress the locals so that they would trust him, I guess. Anyway, in 1859, he, along with others he was working with, drilled the first commercially successful oil well in the United States. Now, 1859 is before Americans were driving cars everywhere. So why did they want the oil? Well, at the time, kerosene was replacing whale oil for lamp oil. So this is also before we all had electricity. So there was a need for oil for lamps. As part of drilling the first commercial oil wells, Drake pioneered the drive pipe technique, which put the drill inside a pipe to prevent collapse around it. So in other words, if they just drilled straight down with a drill, the hole would get filled up with, I guess, dirt and rock. It would collapse around it. But they found that if they put a pipe into the hole and they put the drill inside the pipe, they could keep the well open as they were drilling, which allowed them to later extract the oil without the hole collapsing. Once they figured out this technique, the boom was on, and Titusville, the town in the area, went from 250 people to 10,000 people in 5 years. Wells and refineries sprung up everywhere. In 1859, they extracted 2,000 barrels of oil. By 1873, they extracted 10 million. Within 6 years, 80% of the world's oil was coming from Pennsylvania. Originally, they were putting barges on Oil Creek, which is part of where this hike is. That would allow the oil to float down the river to the Allegheny River, and then they would be put on steamships to go to Pittsburgh. In 1862, the Oil Creek and Titusville Railroad replaced the barges. Today, it's a tourist railroad. And that connected the network to bigger railroads later so that you could get the oil out to other railroads. In 1865, only a few years later, they built the first oil pipeline in the area. So there were millionaires, of course, that came out of this industry, but Drake wasn't one of them. Colonel Drake had leased the land where they were drilling, and Jonathan Watson, who owned the land that is now part of the state park, became one of those first millionaires. So it's not always the extractors themselves that get rich. In fact, Drake did not become rich. He failed to patent his inventions, and he lost his money speculating on oil in other parts of Pennsylvania. He ended up dying impoverished in 1880 at age 61. So even though he started the boom, he didn't really benefit from it personally. Production in the area peaked in the late 1880s, and then it declined. The boom was over by around 1900, when focus had shifted to Ohio, Oklahoma, Texas, and California for oil. Pennsylvania dropped from 58% of the country's oil to less than 10%. The history of all this can be seen at the Drake Well Museum in Cherry Tree Township. Kevin also mentions in our interview Petroleum Center, which was a boomtown that started in 1861 and was deserted by 1873. It's currently a ghost town within the Oil Creek State Park, and it has a visitor center with some displays about the history. This has also been a lumber area at times, Titusville in particular. There were 17 sawmills in the area at one time. There was lumber being extracted before and after the oil boom. But then in the 1930s with the CCC, the Civilian Conservation Corps, there was a lot of replanting of trees. And today the forest that you see is primarily second growth forest. There is, of course, an environmental legacy that comes from this kind of extractive industry. There are hundreds of thousands of abandoned wells. There have been some methane leaks and other substances like iron and arsenic, but there is ongoing work to plug those old wells to alleviate that issue. So this is the history of oil in the area, but many of you may know that there is also a modern boom in Pennsylvania of fracking. Since 2007, there has been a modern boom in hydraulic fracking for oil and natural gas throughout Pennsylvania. This is the process of injecting high-pressure mixtures of water, sand, and chemicals to fracture underground shale to get the oil and gas to come to the surface. This is newer technology that's made drilling profitable again. I realize the process is controversial from an environmental perspective. There are concerns about water usage, chemicals, and wastewater disposal, among other things. I'm not going to address those issues here. I just wanted to point out that this area that had once had a historic oil boom has recently experienced a modern boom as well, though a lot of it is in other parts of the state rather than directly where this hike is. Let's talk about where the hike is directly. That is in Oil Creek State Park. It's 6,250 acres or 2,529 hectares in size. It was established in 1931. It's about a 2-hour drive north of Pittsburgh and 2.5-hour drive east of Cleveland, Ohio. The Gerard Hiking Trail itself is a long and narrow loop on both sides of Oil Creek, which runs through the park. Oil Creek is a tributary of the Allegheny River. It's used for canoeing, kayaking, and fishing. There's bass and trout in the area. The trail is 36 miles long, or about 58 kilometers. As Kevin will talk about, there are shelters at Wolf Keel and Cow Run. These are actually areas that have a number of shelters, so there's 6 shelters in each area at both Wolf Keel and Cow Run, and each shelter holds 3 to 4 people. The trail is named after state park volunteer Ray Gerard, who developed most of the trail in the 1970s. And Gerard, in fact, maintained the trail for 16 years. All right, so there's background on the park and on the oil industry in this region. And now let's jump into my conversation with Kevin Morgan. Kevin Morgan, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
I'm excited to be here, Jeremy.
So you live in Pennsylvania, and my understanding is that you are involved with a Facebook page called Hiking and Backpacking Pennsylvania. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I live in central Pennsylvania. If you looked at the map and you stuck your finger in Pennsylvania, you'd probably hit my hometown. It's just below State College in central Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
The Facebook page is really a kind of a community page where we all kind of give each other information about where water resources are or campsites. There's 2 actual Facebook pages. One is like Hiking and Backpacking Pennsylvania with an ampersand. That's us.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is just Hiking and Backpacking in Pennsylvania. So don't go to that one. We don't like them. So.
Is there like a friendly competition between these 2?
I wouldn't say that, but it's probably unfriendly. So,
All right.
But
hiking ampersand backpacking Pennsylvania is your page.
It's a great page. I've met a lot of my friends that we go on these trips with, and we kind of like plan them out together. But the one really cool thing that we actually do is we actually have a holiday tradition where we do the 12 days of hiking and backpacking in Pennsylvania, which is coming up, where we have some of the experts put out wildlife you've seen, and we get to post up pictures of all the things that we saw, and it really adds to the whole community.
That's neat. I like that.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Today we're going to talk about the Gerard Trail, which is in Oil Creek State Park in Northwestern Pennsylvania. How did you come to decide to do that hike, and what attracted you to doing it?
My little community that we all kind of came together. There's a niche group of maybe 6 or 7 of us.
Mm-hmm.
And we each pick a trail and say, hey, I'm going to plan this one out for us to go on. And this is the trail that they decided, hey, Kevin, this is you're up. And it was a trail that I saw on the page from other people that have done it.
Mm-hmm.
And we always enjoy doing winter backpacking trips. And this was one that had some unique features. So,
well, that's what I wanted to ask you about. You just mentioned that you like hiking and doing backpacking in the winter. I think a lot of people don't. A lot of people take the winter off if they live in a very snowy region, or people like me who live on the coast, and particularly in California, have opportunities to do trips in the winter that aren't in the snow. Why did you decide this was a good one for the winter versus waiting for the summer or something like that?
Me and my group, some of them are a little crazy. They put me through some ringers on some of these trips. And we often talk about, if you don't hike in the winter, you're not a true backpacker. That's the way you level up. You increase your fortitude by, putting yourself through adverse situations. And they like to do it. So this trip, the one thing about winter is like, sometimes you just, with not much daylight, you crawl into your hole. You just have to sit there and hope that you wake up in the morning and the sunlight hits you and you're like, oh God, I'm so glad the sunlight came. But this trip was something that I thought had an opportunity to have some camaraderie, even at camp, where you didn't have to sit there and just shiver. I planned this trip and it didn't go the way I wanted to, and you're going to hear the story, but it was a heck of a trip.
Let me start by asking you how many people, who were the people who went with you on this particular trip, or how many?
Well, the original trip was scheduled in November,
mm-hmm.
and it was supposed to be a group of like 6 of us.
Uh-huh.
But when I took place and I scheduled November, they had a fire ban come into effect. And even in these shelters, which have like chimneys, they said you couldn't burn because it was
Okay.
that situation. So they basically said, I was like, well, the whole purpose of this trip was for us to have an opportunity to have these shelters and backpack through adverse conditions and then have some, solitude, some opportunity to have some camaraderie.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, well, you can't do it. So they made me move it to February. So I lost 2 of my participants because they had other things going on.
Okay.
In the end, it was Mark, Jim, and Adam that ended up being able to go with me.
What did you do to prepare for this? Were there good resources online that you found or through the local community that you have online?
Actually, the state park was very helpful. When I originally started trying to plan out the trip, I gave them a call and they were like, hey, we'll be happy to send you maps, brochures, everything. And I was like, cool. And they sent them to me for free. And
oh, great.
The map they sent me was very nice. I did watch a lot of YouTube videos, which I'm prone to do. Anytime me and my crew have a hike, I watch a lot of the videos just to get an idea of like places that might be hard to navigate. There's so many resources online.
So for someone who's never been to this part of Pennsylvania, can you describe what this terrain is like? I mean, is it forested? Is it mountainous? Is it flat? Are there rivers? What is the general terrain like in this area?
Well, have you been to Pennsylvania, Jeremy?
Only to Philadelphia.
Okay. Well, the AT passes through Pennsylvania, and they often refer to it as Rocksylvania. So a lot of the terrain is on high ridges and it's fairly rocky.
Okay.
But it's your typical deciduous forest, mixed in with a few pine, hemlock outcroppings. This trail is through a complete state park, which a lot of the trails in Pennsylvania go through state parks, but they also go through state forest. And in the state forest, you can camp wherever you want. But in the state park, you have designated areas that you have to camp.
Okay.
It basically traverses the Oil Creek. You basically go up one side of the Oil Creek and back down the other side of the Oil Creek. And the 2 towns that are at each end, to the north is Titusville, and to the south is Oil Creek City. You're moving through the whole state park over 3 days.
One of the things that seems interesting about this region is the history of the oil industry in this area, and hence the name of the park, I guess. Are there structures or a ghost town or buildings left over from that past that's part of this park and part of this trail?
Oh, all over the place. There's, oh my goodness. You go 5 miles in from the southern terminus and there's like little shacks of tinfoil, and like some of them don't have very good roofs, but you can go into them. They're structurally sound, but it's kind of creepy. There's a lot of infrastructure of concrete. It looks like they used hoists to like move things up. Sometimes when you're walking along the trail, you'll come across pipes that are sticking out of the ground or moving across the trail, like where they used to move the oil up from areas. There's areas where they have these wooden, almost look like old caskets, like wooden caskets where they kept the oil in them, and they're beaten down, but they're still there. And I explored a lot of them. They were fascinating, really fascinating.
That's interesting. That's like before the time of using metal oil drums, I guess.
Yeah. They were wooden, like strapped on with like bands around them, and some of them were
interesting,
a lot more intact than others. But I tried to look into like how they harvested the oil. It looks like they kind of pulverized the shale until the shale kind of crumbled and the oil kind of like seeped out of the ground. And then they found a way to like move it into these drums. And then from there, there's a train that ran right through the middle of the canyon that I'm guessing they moved it up to Titusville or Oil City to like ship out.
So what about animals in the winter? I would imagine that the fauna that you might see in the winter in this region is different than you might see in the summer. I don't know if some of the animals hibernate or what the story is, but what did you see on this hike, or what are things you might be able to see?
I was really surprised on the amount of animal activity I heard. Like I said, when I first signed up for it and I reserved the shelters, they actually contacted me and they basically said, hey, near the first shelter, we've had a bear that's very curious of people. So be aware. But I was like, it's February. That bear can't possibly be out.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't really concerned about that, but there were lots of bald eagles, lots of osprey.
Oh, wow.
Along the creek. Later on, I can tell you about a run-in I had with a bald eagle. There was a time where I came across at night at Cow Run, which is the first shelter location. At dusk, I heard a large coyote group, or whatever you want to call them. They were yelling.
I guess it would be a pack.
Yeah, a pack. Yeah, definitely a pack. And later the next day, we actually found a carcass of a deer that they'd been gnawing on that was frozen into the trail.
Wow.
And I guessing that they come back every night because there was this remnants of this deer were all over the place. It was really kind of eerie.
So you mentioned that this was a 3-day hike. How many miles is the entire loop?
36 miles.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you're going to do this in the winter, what did you think about as far as gear that might be different than you would take in the summer? I mean, just a warmer sleeping bag or anything special?
I took my 15-degree bag.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be sleeping in the shelters. Now, there are also campsites that are available. They're at the same location of the shelters. You have to sleep there.
Are these shelters like 3-sided, open, like AT kind of shelters?
Man, they're so cool. These shelters, they're like a lean-to shelter that you would see, but they have a chimney that's centrally located right in the middle of the shelter at the platform.
Oh, okay.
And the chimney is this cobblestone chimney that rises up really high. So it's a large stone mass that once you get heated, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine.
Okay. And do you have to do anything particular for food storage? You mentioned that there's bear activity, and I'm not clear if it's year-round or not. It sounds like you weren't sure either, but do you have to store food to keep it from rodents or bears or other kind of concerns like that as you're on this hike?
There are bear boxes at the shelter locations.
Oh, okay.
They are.
All right.
I did not use them. I wasn't overly concerned about it, being that it was like early February.
Mm-hmm.
But I was concerned about mice. So I took my food bag and I hung it on a nail that was at the top of the shelter so that the mice couldn't get into it.
Okay.
The bears here in February are hibernating. They're not going to come out, but they are opportunities. If you want to put them in the bear box, you can.
And you mentioned that there are these shelters, and those sound fantastic. And it sounds like you need to reserve those. But I think are there also campsites? And if you wanted to use a campsite instead of a shelter, would you need to reserve that as well?
You would. I think you would. We were really, really interested in using the shelters.
Mm-hmm.
But I did see a person camping at one of the campsites that night. Now, you have to reserve those from what I understand, and you still have to pay a fee like you would at the shelters. But you still get opportunity to use the wood supply that's there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a really cool thing that they have a wood supply. Is that something you have to pay for, or do they just have that there for people who do the regular reservation fee?
It's the regular reservation fee. Yeah.
Okay. And that fee looked pretty reasonable from what I saw on the state park website. It looks like it's only like $4 or $5 a night.
Yeah. It was $4 for in-state, $5 for out-of-state. We carried our permit that I generated online, but nobody really came to see us. Mm-hmm. Nobody really said anything. I guess if somebody would have took the shelter, then I could have been like, hey, that's my shelter. But, there was really no hostility. And the shelter area came alive at night. It was unbelievable. I was completely blown away because there's parking areas that are near the shelters. Uh-huh. And I had this idea that some of these people, I've been hiking the trail and stayed at the shelters.
Right.
And I had this idea that some of these people just parked at the parking location, slapped on their micro spikes, and just came in for the night just to rough it, because there was people. I was like, what did all these people come from? But it really was interesting, like great stories. So
in addition to the people that were staying at the shelters and maybe were just coming in for that, were there other people out there doing the loop, or was it pretty much just you guys that were doing that in February?
I would say probably half and half.
Oh, okay.
There were some people, there's ways on this, and when we get to the itinerary, I'm sure we'll mention it, but there's ways to make the loop shorter.
Okay.
And it seemed that some of them were like be there for like 2 or 3 nights. Like I came across one shelter and it was a group of guys they were like on a bachelor party. They like had like a folding table where they were playing cards in the shelter by the fire. And then they were like day hiking during the day. It was weird, but they were good guys, you know.
Yeah, that's not a bad way to do a backpacking trip, to do it like a base camp, right? You just get into one spot, set up, and then find some day hikes from there. That can work.
Yeah, there was plenty of places to explore and plenty of things to see.
And so for navigation, you mentioned the map that the park provided, so that sounds great. My understanding is that there's also a blaze system where the trees are marked with a yellow blaze. Yeah. I was wondering how prevalent that is. Is it pretty easy to follow if you're just doing the loop to see those blazes?
I had no problem following the blazes. The only place that really got me and my crew a little discombobulated was near Oil Creek, about 4 miles before you got to the petroleum center. It got near the creek and the petroleum center. There's a lot of like alternate little side trails, and we got a little lost. But one of the guys that was with me, Jim, his little watch started beeping when we started getting off the trail, and he's like, "I think we're lost." And I'm like, "I don't think we're lost, but we're definitely not on the right track." So, but it was fairly easy to follow.
So where did you start the trail? Because this is a loop hike, I guess you could start in different places potentially. Where did you start and which direction did you hike and why?
Okay. I started at the southern terminus. From what I've read online and watched from YouTube videos, is most people started at the southern terminus.
Okay. Which town is that?
That's near Oil City. Oil Creek's the name of the creek, but Oil City is the name of the town.
Okay.
It was the Rand Farm and Train Station.
Okay.
Yeah, and when we first got there, me, Jim, and Adam wasn't there yet. Adam came in a little later. And actually, Adam, the guy that was supposed to bunk up with me, he took off his micro spikes like 4 miles in and fell and dislocated his shoulder and basically had to backtrack out, and he didn't make it. So it was just me, Jim, and Mark. But yeah, we got to Rand Station, and we were like, okay, this is like an ice skating rink.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of seasonal snow that takes place up there. So,
which direction did you do the loop and why? Clockwise or counterclockwise?
Counterclockwise.
Why that direction?
The main reason is because it took 2 hours for us to drive there, and Cow Run was like 9 miles in. So that got us in before daylight fell on the place.
Okay.
It just seemed like a good location to start.
So overall, how difficult was this day to day? Was it pretty deep snow, or was the trail part clear, or how did that work? And were there river crossings, or were rivers frozen over?
I was in my micro spikes for 36 miles.
You wore them the whole time?
I wore them the whole time.
Okay.
I wore them at camp. The only time I didn't do it is once I got all my wood into the shelter.
Okay.
It was icy. It was really icy.
Yeah.
And I feel bad for Adam for taking his off, but I told him, I was like, put them on, buddy. Keep them on.
Yeah, yeah.
It's tough. And if you haven't walked in micro spikes, then before you do something like this, you need to have a good understanding of what it's like to walk in them.
Mm-hmm.
The elevation, it wasn't that bad.
Okay.
But the ice was treacherous.
What about water availability? Are the creeks frozen this time of year, or is there running water?
Yeah, the water was fine.
Okay.
Plenty of water falling into the valley.
Okay.
We didn't have any problem with that. There was sometimes near Wolfkill that I wish I would have got water, because I had to like hike down to get water when I stayed in that shelter. It was not fun to go down and get water from there. I wish I would have got water beforehand. But yeah, other than that, there's plenty of water.
So take me through an itinerary for how you did this trip day by day.
Okay. We started off at the Rand Farm train station, which is the southern terminus near Oil City. I met up with my friends Mark and Jim, and Adam was 2 hours behind, like I said, but he's a very experienced hiker, and I kind of figured he'd have no problem meeting up with us at the first shelter. But as we walked, the first thing that really jumped out of my eye was the ice control dam.
Mm-hmm.
There's a dam that's like 2 miles up from Oil City that controlled ice flow through the town. And it literally caused the whole creek to like look like a solid block of ice. And it was fascinating. I thought that was really cool. And it's about there where you first start seeing little remnants of old oil historicals. Mm-hmm. And you can kind of explore those. And as you head back up moving up a little bit, the valley. Then you come to a place where you come into Petroleum Center.
Mm-hmm.
Petroleum Center is an old renovated ghost town. I didn't really go in there explore, and I kind of wish I would have.
So that would be a side trip worth doing, you think?
I think so. We started at 10 and sunsets at like 5. So
Yeah. So you have limited daylight and you're worried about getting to camp in time.
Oh, yeah. You don't want to be out in micro spikes at night with your headlamp on. That's just something.
Yeah. So maybe in the summer, that would be something to do if you were hiking it in the summer.
Definitely. I saw pictures of it. It really looks like a really cool and like a little general store and, different stuff. We didn't go.
What was your first night campsite or first night shelter?
Oh, Cow Run.
Cow Run. Okay.
Cow Run. It had great water, not that far, easy to get to. It faced west, so the sunset was unbelievable. It was just like
nice.
Beautiful purples. It was up on the hill a little bit, but you still had good water coming down from Cow Run itself.
Mm-hmm.
We got there and I want to say like 4:30, and we started at 10.
Mm-hmm.
But you're walking on spikes, so you're taking your time. Once the sun set at like 6 o'clock, 5:30, all kinds of people started pouring into the site. It was
now it's a party.
Yeah, you have to winterize these sites a little bit by taking tarps to like string them up along the edge of the chimney to cut back on wind flow coming through there, which I had kind of looked into. I used like an 8-foot by 6-foot tarp and just strung it up with string and some latches. And you always want to put your windward side to where the wind's blowing is like the area. And then your other side is your out area. And then you stack your wood up that you want to use for the night on that windward side to kind of keep the wind from blowing through.
Mm-hmm.
I just used 2 tarps, but some of these other people were coming in with like tension rods with like shower curtains and I'm like, they've done this before. I'm like, I walk up to them and I'm like, what are y'all doing? They're like, we're from the local college, and we just come up here to hang out and chill. And I'm like, man, y'all got quite the setup. It's like, yeah, they're hotboxing it.
So take me through day 2 then.
Day 2's tough. That's 16 miles.
Okay. So that's a lot in microspikes.
Yeah. We started off day 2. I think it was 15 degrees in the morning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But like I said, we woke up in the morning, you still have a fire. So it's not a big deal because you had a fire all night. You just wake up in the middle of the night, throw a log on the fire and go back to bed. It got cold. You throw a log on the fire. You just reach over and grab one and throw it on the fire. So it was very comfortable all night long. My water didn't even freeze. I think I got back in the eggs for the morning and we got up and... Well, that's the thing. You don't have to bring a tent. You don't really have to bring, any of the things because you know where you're sleeping. So I brought a little frying pan and some luxury items with me and had a grand ball. So...
Yeah. I mean, I've done some winter camping, and that's one of the things that, it's not one of the things that I'm big on, but one of my friends that I did some winter camping with in the past, he loved to bring like really nice fresh food because you're in refrigerator or below temperatures. So you can bring things he used to bring fresh salmon and eggs and things like that because you don't, you can cook it up. It'll stay good the whole time because of the temperature.
Well, I froze bacon in like Ziploc bags. And by the time we got to camp, it was still frozen. I just stuck it in the snow, and
yep.
And yeah, it was wonderful. But the next day, 16 miles.
Okay. And what's the shelter for that day?
Oh, where do you have to get to? Wolfkill.
Wolfkill. Okay.
Yeah. But from Cow Run, you start heading back up, and that's where you get your first frozen waterfall, which is...
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Plum Dungeon Falls was the first frozen waterfall, which I'm a big fan of frozen waterfalls. I love them. But this one, you can't really get down close to. It's more of like you have to stand back because it really cavernouses out. It really digs into the surface there.
Okay.
But it was a nice one. And then you keep on hiking on up. Then we met the remnants of the coyote carcass later on that day.
Wait, it was a carcass of a deer that the coyote had been feeding on?
The coyotes were eating, yeah.
Okay.
It was a grand party there. They must have spread that carcass out for like, I don't know, 30, 40 yards. I was like, wow.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that's what I heard that night when the sun was setting, was them having their party. But we kept moving back up, and then you come down and you get to Booten Falls. That was the next waterfall.
Okay.
And that was a nice one. You get a little bit better view of that one than the Plum Dungeon Falls.
Are these completely frozen or partially frozen?
Oh, they're pretty much all frozen up in February.
Okay.
Yeah. There's still some running water, but it's icicles hanging off the side.
Cool.
And then you move on up, and at this point, you come to an area where you can actually cut off 4 miles. You can come down some switchbacks to the Swinging Bridge, which traverses the Oil Creek.
Mm-hmm.
The buddies I was with, they were like, hey, we've never been by the Swinging Bridge. We're going to take that. And I'm like, okay. They'd explored this region a little bit themselves before they decided to do this with me. I was like, okay, but I'm getting this trail in. So I kept going by myself.
You're a purist. You wanted to do the whole loop.
Well, I didn't want to come back and finish this trail. I want to mark it on my calendar.
Yeah.
I'm like, done.
Right.
Right. I want to get it done. So I kept going north, and that's where you run into the northern terminus, which is the Drakewell Museum.
Mm-hmm.
And that's right off the trail where you can go into the museum, and it tells about the history of the area and stuff like that. I did not go in because I had to get 16 miles in.
Yep.
And I think it was open because at that point I started seeing more people day walking.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't stop. I kept going. But I've looked at it online, and it looks very informative. I kept going and started heading back uphill and started making my way down. And at this point, you have an opportunity to see another falls called Miller Falls.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to come off the trail just a little bit, maybe a half a mile.
Okay.
And I'm not passing up a frozen waterfall. So
Is there a junction that's obvious?
It's pretty obvious. It's red blazed.
Okay.
And with the map, it was pretty easy to see. And it was by far the best waterfall. You got the best view of it. There's another one later on that you traverse over, but this one's by far the biggest and had the best frozen characteristics. Then you make your way down, and then you're getting close to Wolfkill. Wolfkill shelters are off the trail, maybe like a mile.
Okay.
So you got to make sure you hit that junction so you can get up to the shelter area. So made it to Wolfkill.
Okay. And your friends were there as well? You didn't lose them en route?
You know what's really funny, Jeremy, is my friends got there obviously before I did because they shaved off 4 miles.
Mm-hmm.
And they ran into a guy who was hanging out in the shelters who had brought all his gear down in this like plastic sled. Okay.
Okay.
And I ended up going over and talking to him. Those were the bachelor boys that were hanging out in the shelter.
Okay.
But the bachelor boys basically told my buddies saying, hey, you can take my sled and go get wood, but you got to bring a load of wood back to me.
Okay.
And these boys had stacked up wood at their shelter like they were going to hang out there until spring came. It was unbelievable. But those boys like grabbed the sled and loaded me up with wood. I didn't even have to get my wood that night. So it was really nice.
Nice.
Yeah. That night we got 3 inches of snow. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So take me through then the last day. You got fresh snow on the ground and you're trying to get back to the car. How'd that go?
My 2 friends, Mark and Jim, had decided that they had done their time and said, hey, I can't walk in these spikes anymore. And
Oh, really?
honestly, it was easier to walk now because the snow gave me much better traction.
Mm-hmm.
I kept the spikes on, but the snow gave me much better grip. So the last 11 miles I did by myself. Yeah, but they decided, hey, we had enough. And it was grueling. It was tough, but
Wait, so what did they do then?
the parking areas, the shelter parking area is not that far off. They had staged a car
I
there
see.
in case they. This is the first time they've walked in spikes, and they were like,
I see.
We don't know if we can do this or not," and they just gave themselves an out. And I'm not taking the out.
Now the story is more interesting to me because you started this with 6 people for a November hike.
Mm-hmm.
Then it got down to 4 people when
Yep.
it became a February hike. And then you had one guy hurt his shoulder
Yep.
because he didn't put on the microspikes when he should have. So then you're down to 3. And then you've got the 2 of the other guys that cut part of the thing and don't do the whole loop.
Mm-hmm.
And then they bail out anyway. So basically it went from 6 down to 1.
I'm the lone survivor.
I love it. All right. And so you made it back to the car in decent time, or was it getting close to dark, or how'd that go?
Yeah, we got up the next morning. They were like, "Hey, we're gonna depart," and I'm like, "All right, we're fine." And they were like, "You need to ride your car," and I'm like, "No, this is going down." So the next day, we took off, and you get to Schaefer Farm. Schaefer Farm had some really interesting signage and remnants there. I explored those a little bit. They had the old, what you typically think of, the old Texan oil dike where they had constructed it down where they were pounding into the shell area. They had reconstructed some of those, and that was kind of neat. I made my way down that, and then you get to Pioneer Falls. Pioneer Falls was another frozen waterfall that I liked a lot. You literally cross right over the top of it. The path walks right over the top, and you get to look down.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of cool. Then you made your way back down the valley, and you make your all the way down to Blood Farm, which was another interesting area where they've like reconstructed an old farmstead, and they were showing some of the signage and educational area there. And I was done. I made my way.
That's awesome. You gave yourself an extra challenge by doing this in winter, and I think that's pretty cool. And I know you wanted to do that, and you wanted to try to give yourself a little bit more scaled up on the difficulty level, and that's cool that you did it. Is there anything you would do differently if you did it again this time of year, or would you do it in a different time of year, or gear-wise, any choices you do differently? Anything that didn't work out the way you hoped?
I'd probably like to see the Petroleum Center.
Okay.
I didn't really get to go explore that. It looked really cool when I saw the pictures online, but I didn't get to do that. Gear-wise, yeah, you need to make sure that you have spikes if you're going to do that.
Yeah.
And I think you could actually do this in snowshoes if you wanted to. It's not that.
Oh, okay.
The elevation is like 4,500 to 5,000.
Mm-hmm.
So you do get some times where you climb, but you could do it in snowshoes. It's not overbearing. So.
Okay. And so for people thinking about hikes to do in that region of the country, why is the Gerard Trail, this loop, something that people should consider doing?
The amount of things you get to see is unbelievable. Between the remnants of the old oil past and the history, this is like the beginning of the oil boom in America, which a lot of people don't realize. They think, oh, it's Texas or Oklahoma, but this is where everything started. And you get to kind of walk through this landscape of history, and you get to stay at these really cool places that they jump alive, and the stories you get to hear. Like I said, the facilities at these places are really nice too. So there's a lot of times I was like, all right, I'm going to slap on my spikes and I'm going to go brush my teeth and use the restroom. And there'd be people there and they'd want to know, where are you going? And, how far'd you go? And, and what's it like down that way? And it was a lot of fun. And collecting wood against these people. It was a lot of fun to hear their stories.
What appeals to me the most about this is exactly what you just said, is all this history, that the farmsteads, the oil past, and also mixing that in with the wilderness that's still pretty challenging. And having the shelters too, I think, and the sort of camaraderie you get at those shelters, all of those things sound really appealing to me. And you're making me want to consider even doing something like this in the winter, which I've done some winter backpacking, but not a lot. But it's interesting to hear about you doing it under those conditions also. Is there a particular memory or moment that stands out for you?
Oh, man. I was hoping you were going to ask this question. My last day when I was by myself, I had a run-in with a bald eagle. I came up around an elevated part, and it was curving up around, and I didn't even see it because there was like these large oak trees, and I'm crunching my way up the hill. And as I come up around the hill, literally 8 foot when I come around this oak tree, there's this bald eagle sitting there eating a fish on the trail.
Oh, wow.
Like 8 foot in front of me. And he didn't hear me coming and I didn't see him. And he just grabbed that fish, took 3 big swipes of his wings and flew right over my head. I could see the tag on his foot. He was so close. And it was scary, but I've never been that close to a bald eagle in my life. And I just stopped and said, this is a good time for a snack break. because I had to close
And
it.
you were thinking of a snack, and after the eagle was saying, "This is my fish, not yours. This is mine."
I'm glad he took the fish. If he would have like not taken the fish, he might have came after me. But yeah, that was close encounters right there. So
that's cool. Well, Kevin, thanks for telling us about your hike on the Gerard Trail. But before I let you go, I've got a few other questions, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah. Shoot.
What is one piece of gear you don't leave home without?
Oh, man. I was debating on this question, what I wanted to say, but my neck buff.
Okay.
I have this stretchy neck buff, and I walk with it in the summer, the winter. I use it in the summer, like I dip it in the creek just to cool myself off or wash myself down, In the winter, I pull it over my face as an extra protection from the wind. At camp, I use it to hold my hot pot when I want to take it off the fire.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And at night, I strap it over my head as like a nightcap. So I love my neck buff. And I burnt through too many neck buffs because I've grabbed too many pots that were way too hot. So
no, that's great. And it's one of the things that's really great about gear like that is that multi-use, right? Like the fact that you can use it for so many different things means that you're carrying less weight because you have one piece of gear that can function for a lot of different uses.
I love my neck buff. I think my wife bought me like one for every Christmas. Every Christmas I get a neck buff. Yeah. I'm very color coordinated out there.
What's the one hike or trip you've done besides this one that others shouldn't miss out on?
Yeah. I've been there 3 times. The Dolly Sods in West Virginia.
Oh, I don't know that one. Tell me about it.
The Dolly Sods is the highest plateau east of the Mississippi. It starts off at bare rocks at about 4,500 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a flat plateau. I went up there in spring and saw flowering plants that I've never seen anywhere in Pennsylvania or Virginia. Incredible, unique vegetation. I took an avian biologist up there, and he's like, I'm hearing birds out here in Canada. So it's an isolated ecosystem that's so unique. I went there in the summer because it was so hot to hike around here, but up there it's 15 degrees cooler.
Mm-hmm.
I hiked there in the summer, and then in fall, the most amazing foliage vegetation I've ever seen. Reds, oranges, shrub-like vegetation as far as the eye can see. It's one of the most diverse, unique ecosystems I've ever ran through. So
that sounds fantastic.
It was beautiful. And I'll probably go back again just because there's trails all over the place, but I haven't ventured them all yet. So.
All right. What's a backpacking meal you could eat every day?
Oh, this has got to be a shout out to my friend Rose, who actually just did the recent episode you had, the Trans Bhutan Trail.
Did she really?
Yeah, she just completed it just the other day.
That's fantastic because that's a big hike.
Yeah. Rose, I go out with Rose, and she puts me in some weird places. But Rose introduced me to the Spam quesadilla.
Okay.
The Spam quesadilla is a single Spam serving, single pouch of Spam. All right, tortillas, Taco Bell sauce, and cheese. All right.
Okay.
The amount of calories you get out of Spam is unbelievable, but I've ate it for breakfast, I've ate it for lunch, and I've ate it for dinner. I take my cooking propane stove, and I take a little piece of wood and crispy up the Spam, slap it in there, crispy up the tortilla, and then bam, Spam quesadilla.
Nice.
I love it.
All right. Last question. What's the worst weather you've ever experienced while outdoors, and how did you handle it?
That had to be my eclipse trip at the Adirondacks back in 2024.
Okay.
Me and a group of my friends from this channel and some other friends decided that we wanted to go see the total solar eclipse.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a nor'easter roll through there. We planned this trip for 6 months, and we're like, we're going to see this thing. And they had a nor'easter roll through. There was 2 foot of snow in the lowlands and 3 foot of snow in the mountains. And they wouldn't let you in unless you had snowshoes, spikes, a canister, and poles. They wouldn't even let you in the park.
Okay. Yeah.
So we went into Lake Placid and bought snowshoes and walked into the park. I'd worn them before, but some of them hadn't. And we camped the night, and it was like walking into Narnia, like snow hanging off of the trees, boughs like on the ground. It was insane. And the next day we climbed Mount Marcy, which is the highest point in the park. In New York. And we climbed Mount Marcy and we got up on the top up there, and I wasn't prepared for what I experienced on top of that mountain. It got so cold so fast once I got up there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever heard the term the screaming memes. Have you heard that?
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard that term.
My hands got so cold that they like froze up and I couldn't move them from lack of blood circulation. And I basically said, we got to get down.
Yeah.
But the problem is there were so many people on the mountain for that time of the year for the eclipse that they were blocking the way down. And I tried to come down and I actually slipped and fell and had to like stop myself from sliding down the mountain, and then rolled over, got back on the trail. Some guy helped me up that I never met in my life. And I got down to the tree line and just sat there and shivered and said, what am I doing up here? But
yeah.
It was not the kind of thing that I was prepared to do. And I made it down. We got back down to camp, but that was a hard 12 miles up that mountain.
Were your hands hurting, or were they so far gone that they weren't even hurting anymore? Because I always tell my son, we were hiking together on Mount Whitney a couple of years ago, and he had his hands really hurting. And I said, because of the cold, and I said, look, if they're still hurting, that's a good sign.
Yeah.
They're not frostbitten until you don't feel them anymore.
I knew they weren't frostbitten. I had gloves on, but they just hurt so bad that I didn't even want to hold my poles. It was just...
Yeah, I understand. I've been there.
Yeah. So that was not fun. The next day, we stayed the next night. It got up to 50 degrees. We saw the eclipse with 100 other people.
Cool.
And that was an experience of a lifetime. And
nice.
And we got out. And I have that story to tell. So...
All right, Kevin Morgan, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jeremy. I really appreciate the show. I listen to it every episode that comes out.
Thanks again to Kevin Morgan for coming on the show. And I hope that we've inspired you to hike the Gerard Hiking Trail in Oil Creek State Park in Northwestern Pennsylvania. And if you enjoyed this episode, tell a friend about it, or better yet, give us a good review on whichever podcast service you use. And keep in mind that this podcast is entertainment and meant to spark your interest. If you decide to hike the trail, do your own research. Like anything else worth doing, outdoor adventure has risk, particularly if you're hiking a trail in winter, as Kevin talked about. There's extra precautions you would, of course, want to take under those circumstances. So when you go, pack your common sense, and when you get back, tell me how it went. Before we go, I want to remind you to buy your backpacking meals at Outdoor Herbivore. They make delicious vegetarian and vegan backpacking meals, which of course you don't have to be vegetarian or vegan to enjoy. They use high-quality ingredients. They make lots of delicious meals. They're very filling, which is something you need when you're out hiking for multiple days. I highly recommend them. I believe right now we are running a 20% off special on one particular meal, which, if everything has gone as planned, I will have announced on the Instagram account at Trails Worth Hiking Podcast. So check out the Instagram account to see which meal from Outdoor Herbivore is on special right now, and give that a try with an extra discount. So go to Outdoor Herbivore at outdoorherbivore.com. They ship worldwide, so wherever you are, they can get you delicious vegetarian and vegan backpacking meals. All right, next time on Trails Worth Hiking, we'll be on a trail that takes less than a week to hike, but takes you south to north across an entire European country, where you'll go through every village in the country and past storybook castles and villages and walk along the Rhine River and through forest, all while being in the middle of the majestic Alps in the heart of Europe. On the next episode of Trails Worth Hiking, we travel the Liechtenstein Trail in, where else but Liechtenstein. If you have any questions or feedback on this episode, or ideas for future episodes, including if you want to be a guest and talk about a trail that you've hiked, reach out to me at trailsworthhiking@gmail.com. Also, I want to let you know that we now have our own website. Before, we had used a sort of limited website that the hosting service I use, Buzzsprout, provides us. But now we have the page, www.trailsworthhiking.com, or just trailsworthhiking.com. Either will work. Check out what we've done there. My daughter Sonia designed the web page. She has been doing this for others as well. So if you're interested in having your own website designed, you might look into hiring her. She has a link there on my page where you can reach out to her. In any event, I'm pretty happy with the new website. So I hope you'll check it out and you'll see the information we have there and some of our more interesting episodes highlighted and lots of other information and a contact form. So I hope you'll go to the new website and browse through it, check it out, and bookmark the page and use that as the primary way to see what we're up to and to reach out to me. Also, of course, follow us on Instagram at Trails Worth Hiking Podcast. Support the show through buymeacoffee.com/trailsworthhiking if you value what we are doing here. And if you'd like, check out my separate retirement-focused YouTube channel at GoGo Retirement on YouTube. Links for all of this in the show notes. All right, so start planning your next hike, and before you know it, you'll be on the trail. Thanks for listening.